On the night of January 2, 2012, 48 people took the last ride through Amity Island. The queue had been 90 minutes long at its peak. The man at the helm was called Skip. At 9 p.m., the boat stopped. By the following morning, before the park opened for another day, the entire area was walled off. What they closed that night was not a secondary attraction. It was the centerpiece of a $600 million theme park. The ride Universal built to prove it could compete with Disney on Disney's own terms. The Jaws attraction had operated for 22 years across two completely different versions. It survived a catastrophic failure on opening day. It generated 2 lawsuits in its first summer. It cost somewhere in the range of $70 million total to build, and it was given 31 days of notice before it was demolished. This channel covers what gets left behind. If you are new here, subscribe and stay through the end of this one. Here is what happened and why. The park was a declaration of competition. Universal Studios Florida opened on June 7, 1990 in Orlando, built directly in Disney's market, in Disney City. The opening ceremony had Steven Spielberg cutting the ribbon alongside Michael J. Fox, Sylvester Stallone, Bill Cosby, and Whoopi Goldberg. There was a live Nickelodeon broadcast. 13 attractions were ready when the gates opened. Jaws was the one meant to define what the park was. The concept came from Peter Alexander, a former college roommate of Spielberg's. He had originally wanted Jaws to be one scene within a longer water ride. His boss, Jay Stein, decided the film warranted a full attraction. The ride placed guests on a pontoon boat tour of Amity Island, the fictional New England harbor from Spielberg's 1975 film. The mechanical shark was nicknamed Bruce, after Spielberg's lawyer, the same name the film crew had used on set, for the same reason. A machine prone to failure from the start. The original manufacturer was Ride and Show Engineering. They built a 1,140-foot lagoon circuit. The ride ran 5 minutes. In the original design, the shark grabbed the boat in its jaws and rotated it, and the finale involved an underwater explosion. It was technically ambitious in ways few theme park attractions had attempted at the time. On opening day, almost none of it worked. Power outages on June 7 shut down ride systems across the park. Jaws was the worst case. The park publicly blamed the closure on possible lightning. The weather that day was clear. Skippers improvised through partial experiences, reportedly telling guests to imagine explosions at locations where nothing was happening. The front page of the Orlando Sentinel, the following morning, described roughly 1,000 guests demanding refunds at the guest relations desk. By August 1990, Universal had shut the ride entirely and filed a lawsuit against Ride and Show Engineering for negligence, specifically for placing non-waterproof components in an underwater installation. A guest had also fallen into the lagoon when a lap bar allegedly broke. The water was shallow in most places, but the guest fell into one of the deep pits built for the animatronic sharks. He survived. He sued Universal for $1 million. Universal in turn sued MCA, the original designers, for engineering flaws. 2 lawsuits running simultaneously on a ride that had been open for less than 2 months. Repair attempts ran through 1991 and into early 1992. None of them held. Universal scrapped the entire ride system and started over. 4 companies rebuilt it. Totally Fun Company for the redesign, Intamin for the ride mechanics, Oceaneering International for the animatronic sharks, and iTech Entertainment for additional effects. Spielberg returned as a creative consultant. The rebuilt version cost approximately $40 million. Combined with the original, total construction across both versions ran somewhere around $70 million. The shark no longer grabbed the boat. The explosion ending became electrocution. The ride was stable. For almost 19 more years it ran. Go looking now for photographs of the original Amity Island section. The harbor storefront, the boat queue, the dock explosion, and it reads like a completely different park. The current map of Universal Studios Florida shows what replaced it. The map is accurate. It has no record of what the map replaced. The rebuilt Jaws ran into its next serious problem in 2004, and it had nothing to do with the sharks. The 2004 hurricane season drove up fuel costs across Central Florida. The pyrotechnic systems in the ride, the dock explosion, the gas station fire sequence, burned through roughly $2 million in petroleum each year. In January 2005, Universal closed the attraction and cited rising fuel prices. The 5-million-gallon lagoon required at least 1 full draining each year for maintenance. The operational costs were substantial. The ride reopened in December 2005, but only on busier operating days. When guests arrived specifically to ride it and found the attraction unavailable, they complained directly to the park. Universal restored full operations in February 2007. The attraction was refurbished each year from 2008 through 2011. The Jaws ride was also not inexpensive to operate. The lagoon, the pyrotechnic systems, the annual draining, these were real costs attached to a franchise that had not released a new film since 1987. The ride still worked. The franchise had no momentum. Here is what was changing elsewhere during those same years. In June 2010, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter opened at Islands of Adventure, Universal's second park, roughly half a mile from the Jaws Lagoon. In 2009, the year before the Potterland opened, Islands of Adventure had lost 13.8% of its attendance from the prior year, falling to 4.5 million visitors. In the quarter following the Harry Potter opening, combined Universal Park attendance increased 36% over the same period the year before. The Orlando Sentinel reported that resort executives were openly discussing when to expand the Potter footprint and how to balance attendance between the two parks. Expanding the footprint required a specific kind of space. The second Potterland needed a Hogwarts Express rail connection to the Hogsmeade section at Islands of Adventure, a functional ride linking the two parks that required a dedicated station inside Universal Studios Florida. Reportedly, Universal's licensing agreement also required attractions based on the Deathly Hallows material, and the new land could not be positioned too close to Hogsmeade for reasons of franchise authenticity. The Jaws footprint, its lagoon acreage, its perimeter position, the existing infrastructure, was the site that made the plan work. Nothing else in the park fit the requirements. On December 2, 2011, Universal announced the closure. 31 days of notice. The stated reason was making room for an exciting, new experience. The backlash was immediate. Petitions circulated online within hours of the announcement. People who had ridden the attraction as children wrote that their own children would not get the chance. The texture of the response was not just nostalgia, it was the sense that something was being taken before anyone had agreed it was finished. January 2, 2012. The line peaked at 90 minutes. Michael Skipper. Skip ran the final public voyage. The last 48 guests boarded at 9 p.m. One detail worth noting, the Kill Shark animatronic, the one electrocuted at the ride's climax, was not functional on the last night. The mechanical unreliability that had followed the attraction from its first day showed itself one final time. Skip ran the boat through anyway. The closing team took one more circuit after the guests stepped off. Whatever that last run felt like, he finished it. If you are finding this one worth your time, a like on the video helps this channel more than you might think. Drop a comment. Which ride do you still miss that you cannot get back to? Not just this one. Any park, any era, we read all of them. The next part covers what happened before the park opened the following morning. By the morning of January 3, the entire Amity Island section of Universal Studios Florida was behind construction walls. Not partially, fully. The walls were up in the hours between the last ride and the next operating day. The boats were being removed. The lagoon was being drained. The dock structures, the animatronic housings, the themed facades along the ride approach, all of it sealed before the first families arrived. A section of the park that had existed since opening day, June 7, 1990, was inaccessible the following morning. By March 2012, photographs from near the construction perimeter showed the lagoon empty. The dock was gone. The structures that had stood through multiple hurricane seasons, annual drainings, and 19 years of daily operation had been removed in a matter of weeks. People who expected the footprint to sit idle for several months before construction began found, instead, that Universal had a $500 million deadline and no intention of leaving the site vacant. Demolition was followed by construction. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Diagon Alley, was built by the same production crew that constructed the sets for the actual Warner Brothers Harry Potter films. Diagon Alley opened on July 8, 2014. Universal Studios Florida saw a 17% attendance increase that year and a 16% increase in 2015. The demolition did not erase everything. The mechanical shark that had hung above the Amity Island town square was moved to the Fisherman's Wharf section of the park's San Francisco area, where it remains. There is also a building facade in that section, with Amity Island Lobster Co. on it, and an original restroom building. These are not memorials. They are objects that were not removed, and they are still in the same general part of the park. Inside Diagon Alley, the design team embedded references that require knowing to find. A set of shark jawbones appears among the potions and herbs in Mr. Mulpepper's apothecary. A record sleeve in one of the shop windows belongs to the Quint Trio, covering a song Quint sings in the film. Shrunken heads in Nocturne Alley can be heard singing "Show Me the Way to Go Home," the same song the main characters sing in Jaws. These were deliberate choices. No official explanation has been attached to any of them. Here is the part that stops people cold. Walk through Diagon Alley without knowing any of that, and it is entirely legible as a Harry Potter experience. The cobblestones, the Gringotts dragon, the shop windows and ambient sound from the storefronts. Walk through knowing, and the same streets sit on top of something that was here for 22 years. And what was here has been folded into the walls of the thing that replaced it, waiting to be found if you know what to look for. Now, what is confirmed and what is not? There is a story about Steven Spielberg on opening day, June 7, 1990. The version that has circulated for more than 30 years says he was on the ride when it broke down and had to be evacuated from the boat. The conditions on that day make the story plausible. The ride was non-functional for most of opening day, and Spielberg was at the park. But no contemporaneous newspaper account and no official statement confirm that he was specifically aboard during a breakdown. The story is consistent with what is documented. It has not been verified. Tour guides at Universal Studios Florida reportedly tell guests something about the animatronic shark itself. The claim, as those guides apparently describe it, is that the shark was not removed during demolition, but buried in place beneath what became the Gringotts Bank section of Diagon Alley, specifically beneath the statue of a banker goblin in the ride's queue. This has not been confirmed by any primary record. It sits in the space between documented history and park mythology, which is where a lot of theme park history ends up. But if it is accurate, the shark that ran its circuit through the Amity Lagoon for nearly 2 decades is now in the ground underneath the space that replaced it, below visitors who have no reason to think about it. Stand in Diagon Alley and look toward the Gringotts Tower. The surface gives you nothing. The place presents itself entirely as what it is now. This one is not entirely gone, and that is exactly what makes it strange. The Jaws attraction at Universal Studios Japan, which opened in March 2001, still operates. The same lagoon concept, the same boat tour through Amity Island, the same mechanical shark. If you want to ride it, you go to Osaka. For most people who grew up at Universal Studios Florida, that is a real place, and it is not the thing they mean. What remains in Orlando? The mechanical shark in the Fisherman's Wharf section, hanging by its tail, slightly faded. It is doing the work of a prop display rather than the work it was built for. People photograph it. Some of them know what it marks. A lot of them do not. Universal Studios Florida saw a 17% attendance increase in 2014, the year Diagon Alley opened, and 16% the year after. The people who made the decision were not wrong about what would follow. The numbers confirmed it, clearly and consecutively. Here is what the numbers do not say. The Jaws ride was one of 13 attractions at Universal Studios Florida on the day. The park opened in 1990. It was the only experience of its kind in the United States, a full-length, live-action boat tour through a mechanical shark encounter, built as the centerpiece of a major theme park. The operational costs were real. Roughly $2 million each year in petroleum, an annual draining of 5 million gallons of water, continuous refurbishment from 2008 through the day it closed. Against a $500 million investment in a franchise with global momentum and active sequels, the math was not close. And yet, the people who worked the ride built something that was genuinely theirs. Michael Skipper spent years behind those boats, not just operating a system, but giving each trip its own character through the call and response between the skipper and whoever was in the seats. That was part of the design. The skipper was a character, and the character was whoever was actually there. What that produced across 19 years was not reproducible. When they closed the attraction, they closed the physical infrastructure. What had been built inside that infrastructure, the particular texture of something run daily by different people over many years, was not something that could be moved. On the last night, the kill shark was not working. The last 48 people screamed their lines anyway. They knew what the ride was, something that had never fully worked perfectly, and was completely itself because of that. You can see Diagon Alley on any satellite image of Universal Studios Florida. The Gringotts Tower is visible, the dragon, the footprint of the streets, and the layout of the land. It is all clearly there. What you cannot see is the 5 million gallon lagoon that occupied those coordinates for 22 years. The boats are not there. The dock is not there. The 5-minute loop through the shark encounter, run year after year by people who had their own rhythms and their own versions of the script. None of that appears on any current map or aerial view. 22 years of something does not leave a mark on the surface. It leaves a mark on the people who were inside it, and that mark does not appear anywhere Universal can sell a ticket to. Michael Skipper ran one more circuit after the guests stepped off on the last night. Just the closing team on the boat, the Lagoon one final time in the dark. The effects were probably not all working. He ran it through anyway, because that is what you do with something you have taken care of for a long time, whether or not anyone is watching. What ride do you still miss? Leave it below. And if you want more history like this, subscribe. We find the ones worth knowing about.